I missed the motion. Who made the first motion?
Pat made the
Who
motion.
made? Okay, sorry. And who's second?
Kennedy did.
Okay.
We all did.
Do we have any
Thank-
citizens on? I can't see on the list of who's on. Do we have any citizens that have anything that they want to bring up or talk about at this time? Hearing none. Deb, are you aware of anything?
I'm not aware of anything. I don't see anybody who's jumped on.
Okay. So under our new business, the first issue we have is a discussion and possible action on approving the meetings for the coming year.
Yep.
Mike?
So council approved their meeting schedule and they approved at their last meeting. And so now that theirs is approved, Public Works approved theirs last night. I'm bringing forward the tentative meeting schedule for Park Board for your review tonight. It's typically held the first Tuesday of every month. Obviously, there's some months with voting in April and some other holidays had to push it back a week or two, but at least it lays out the schedule for the year. And obviously, it's up to the board chair. If this is the schedule that we go with, obviously there'll be some alterations if we don't have enough agenda items or we need to hold a special meeting, but at least it gives you a tentative outline of the schedule for the season.
Yeah, I didn't see any conflicts personally with it. Did anyone else see anything? Mike, do you want anything in form of a motion from us then for
Yeah, it'd
adopting?
be great to get a motion in a second.
Okay,
Make a motion to approve 2022 Park Board meeting schedule.
I'll second.
okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Anyone have any further questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
I
Hi.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next item we have is a discussion and possible action on the concessions agreement at Grandview Park between us and the boosters.
Yep, so this is a yearly thing that the park board reviews. It is our agreement with the Hudson Boosters to operate concession stands out at Grandview Park. Part of the agreement is the city receives 6% of sales. So last year, in the issue sheet I put, we received $1,261.56 from the Hudson Boosters. And so basically all we're looking to do at Park Board tonight is to get a motion and a second to continue this agreement. It's been, since my time here, I've been here for almost 4 years, haven't had any complaints about vandalism or them leaving the property in shambles. It's been a great partnership. It's nice to have someone there at the facility offering, concessions for water, Gatorade. They sell hot dogs or something on the weekends, good fundraiser for them. So I would recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
I'd just like, can I just say one thing?
Sure.
I don't have, the agreement I think is really good and spells everything out, but you've got a problem with your first paragraph. You actually say it's for 2021. The second paragraph lists the right dates, but the first paragraph does not.
Good
I see
editing.
that, Karen. Thank you.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, good eye.
Hey, and I've got a question too. Just as I was reading through it, point 23, you have playing fields and park maintenance responsibilities. The city shall, and it talks about cutting the grass and weed control and fertilizer. I guess I'm curious why that's in this agreement. I mean, we're going to do that with or without concessions. It just seems weird that it's tied to them selling candy bars, that we're going to cut the grass and do all that. You know what I mean? Is that cut and pasted from something else maybe, or?
Deb, can you answer that by any chance?
Oh,
Yeah, do you
that's
have any-
this agreement's been in place for, as long as I've been here. And
Okay.
I think it's just meaning that we're going to keep the maintenance up on the facility. I don't really know. It's been in there forever. So
Okay.
Are you okay with that, people? Or do we want to make a change to that? Or do you think you should, Mike? Or leave it as is?
I guess I understand Mike, Mr. Kennedy's point, how what does cutting the grass or fertilizing the fields have to do with selling concessions?
Yes.
I think my guess is it's probably just in there to clarify for the boosters that they don't have to do it.
Yeah, that could be, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe some wheels are best left round. Let's leave it in there then
Yep.
and have a motion and a second.
I would move to approve the concession stand deal with Hudson Boosters, given the points that were pointed out already
Okay.
regarding the date. Sorry.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Kennedy seconded it. Any further discussion or questions anyone has before voting? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. The next item is kind of half attached to that again with the boosters, and it's the issue of us donating and deeding over the adjacent land to the school district. It's been a good relationship with the school district all the way along. It hasn't been problematic between the city and the school in terms of usage, but I see at the point of where it does clean things up. Mike, you want to lead?
Yeah,
in?
so has everybody seen the map, or do you want me to share my screen?
I can see it.
I can see it.
Okay, well, I mean, if you want me to share my screen, I can, but the gist of it is obviously there's the city has had a longstanding agreement with Hudson Boosters to utilize, I'll say, the softball field and then the lacrosse open space football fields just south of the middle school. And that agreement expires in 2022 here. And John Henrink from the Hudson Boosters had reached out to me to kind of get this going, get the ball rolling, making sure that all our I's are dotted and T's are crossed before we bring it forward to Park Board and Council. And in our conversations, he had brought up the fact that the property line runs down the middle of the softball diamond, and everything to the west is owned by the school district, and everything to the east of that is owned by the city of Hudson. And he thought it was prudent, and I agreed, to bring the school district on board on any new agreements. And so I told him that I would reach out to the school district to kind of bridge that gap and say, you know, the city has an agreement with the boosters to utilize these facilities. And I wanted to let the school district know that these facilities are on your property as well. And during our discussions, it was talked about what are the possibilities, whether it be the city taking over the entire ownership of the softball and green space fields, or the school district taking over that ownership. And I kind of lean towards the school district just because they're utilizing it right now for their athletic programs, whether it's varsity, JV, freshman softball, some of their football programs. And so, I did talk about it with Mike Johnson and Aaron Reeves before I put it on Park Board agenda, just to get kind of their initial reactions. And they thought it was a good idea because right now, the city is responsible for scheduling of those facilities. We maintain them, we mow them, we fertilize them, so on and so forth. So if we were to deed this land over to the school district, it would fall underneath their facility umbrella, and they would take care of the maintenance. They would mow it. They would schedule it underneath, their athletic facilities like they do at the high school or EP Rock. Rivercrest Elementary would be incorporated into that. And so it kind of gets us out from underneath it. There's not really, when you think of a parks system, this area is kind of more of a niche park in that there's only a select group of people that A, use it, or B, even realize that it is a public facility, that it is a parkland. So you're not getting a lot of just, family outings, so on and so forth, utilizing this space. And, for those reasons, I'm suggesting and bringing it forward to Park Board tonight to get your reactions on if we want to pursue deeding that 3 acre of land, that eastern side of the athletic fields, over to the school district. And they would be open to taking that over. So I just want to get everyone's initial thoughts and go from there.
So it's everything that's included in the red Dash.
Correct. Yep, yep. We would still maintain and own the forest portion, just because there's stormwater facilities in there. There's trails, stuff that, you know, is utilized by the public. People go walking through there on the trails a lot when they walk their dogs, so on and so forth. So I wouldn't look to deed that over. It's just that sliver of red, like Pat had said.
Mhm.
Can you pull it up on the screen, Mike? Because I'm a little unclear about where
Yeah.
our boundary is on that.
Nate, can you share the screen, please?
Should be on, Mike.
Okay. Let's see here.
I've got it up on my screen and I'm using my phone for this. I can just turn it and show it.
I got it.
You got it? Okay.
Yep, got it. So
So
like the significance of the, here I'm pointing at, like you can see me, the horizontal line that dissects the new red rectangle,
Yeah.
kind of starts on second base there
Yep.
and goes east. I guess I'm not clear what that boundary line means.
So there's this square up. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Yep.
Can everybody see this? Okay. So this square up here, this is city property. And then we have this whole big chunk, of course, is city property down here. So Mike, I think originally when this was platted, this was just the original plat, how they had that separated into two different parcels.
Okay.
So this is a school district here. This is city, and this is city. So it's basically what I would look to do is, this is about 60 feet wide by, I forgot what I put in my, 160. Yeah, 160 feet wide by 900 feet long. It's about 3 acres in total acreage if you put it in the square feet, but that's the portion. So then it would incorporate this green space field, this green space field, and then this diamond would all be on the school district property.
So just sliding that to the east.
Yep, just sliding this vertical line, property line to the east, 160 feet, right
Okay.
along the wooded edge.
Mhm.
Just square it off.
So Mike, for some reason, your cursor's not appearing on my screen, but so is it just between that red dotted line and then the parallel black line in the middle?
correct.
No, so the red dotted line would be the new
The new,
property
pro-
line.
okay.
And the old property line is the black line that cuts north-south?
The black
So it's
lines
just,
are
it's just moving over that little area is what you're saying?
correct, yes.
Okay.
So then like I said, so that all the athletic fields that are currently utilized and used by the school district are on school district land. Because it's funny, when I brought it up to them, they were we talked about liability and if someone gets injured or negligent, who is actually responsible for it. And so it gets a little gray, and it's like, yeah, we probably don't want to enter into another agreement before we get this figured out, whether it's the city taking it over completely or it's a school district taking it over completely.
And Mike, the ones to the west, the bigger diamond and the upper
Mhm.
corner ones are already owned by the school district, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So they would essentially just be taking over that third diamond is what it's really about.
And the lacrosse field. Yeah, I love the idea of not cutting the baby in half and having one or the other. You had mentioned deeding it, legal terms of deeding it to the school. Just as an exercise, is there any other kind of legal device we could use? Could we lease it to them for $1 for 30 years? Just the idea of, at some point, do we ever want to reclaim that? If they abandon it, we just gave up that land. Just wondering if that's an option so that we could still keep our hooks in it if ever needed. Or does that not concern you?
Asking me, Mike?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just wondering, the idea, once we give it to the school district, it's gone.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. My initial reaction is, I don't know what else it would be used for. And to be
Yeah.
honest, it gets us away from having to maintain this facility, which takes time, and it's hard to find, well, you know, in this day and age, it's hard to find employees to begin with, but then, you know, it eases some of the burden off of our staff to maintain that facility. And I'm looking at it from that perspective
Right.
and from the scheduling perspective too. It's just, to me, it makes sense that it is incorporated into the school district. And unless the park board or city council foresees a reason why we would ever want to have that land back to use for something else, I think it's always going to be athletic fields or facilities.
So
Okay,
Mike,
yeah,
would the-
fair enough. I was just
would the-
thinking, and again, I go for the idea of that they take over the responsibilities of maintaining it and chalking it, you know, doing whatever they want to do and alleviating your crew from that. Again, just wondering if there's a, you know, put that into a lease that you get it for X amount of years. You're going to do all the maintenance, you're going to water it and fertilize it, whatever you want to do. But then with some sort of clawback thing. Again, just the idea that, you know, once we give it, we don't get it back.
An example of that, Mike, maybe in a different session would be the old Hudson Hospital site. We sold it to the hospital originally for $1 and had to buy it back from the hospital for $1 million.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to have something in there that we never have to pay. If the city gets that land back, we don't have to pay for it.
I think that's a good point. I think that might be something you could put in the deed, so that it was just very clear from the beginning that if at some point they no longer, or they want to relinquish this property, the city would get it back.
Yeah.
They're not paying for it, are they?
No, my recommendation is this: they would help cover or pay for the survey work and the write-up, that type of material, you know, that type of thing. They would cover that expense, but there would be no cost associated with it.
So yeah, they shouldn't then benefit from selling it back to us if that ever happened.
And Mike, is the thought that then the school district, how does this work with the boosters? Does the school district then do, you know, scheduling there? How does that work?
Yeah, so they would incorporate it into their athletic facilities schedule, and the boosters would reach out to the school district to schedule practices, games, you know, so on and so forth with the school district.
And then we would still be negotiating with the boosters for our fields, like at Grandview or other places as well. So the boosters would essentially be dealing with both entities, which they probably do already.
Which they do already. Yeah.
Okay.
So Mike Morose, would you like a motion to come out of this recommending that action?
Yeah, if that's what the board wishes, I would request a formal motion that I could bring to council for discussion.
Okay. So anyone care to make that motion?
I move to approve that the city deed the property to the school district.
With the language that we don't have to,
Yes, I would amend that. Yes, with the language that we would not be required to purchase it back from them if they chose not to use it anymore. Something to that effect.
is there a second?
I'm wondering if we, not to put more work on your desk, Mike, but you know, maybe that language is the language of that agreement would be all about the relinquishing or turnover after X amount of days. So maybe we have to see that language before we rubber stamp it.
That's
So
totally,
if the park board wants, I can, knowing kind of how, maybe instead, Karen, if you're amenable to this, is redact your motion and then maybe just make a motion to direct staff to put together a draft deed between the school district and the city of Hudson for the identified parcel.
Sure.
And then I can bring it back to park board for your review next month before you approve it and go on to council.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I'll retract my motion
And remake Mike's motion.
and remake the motion as Mike suggested.
Mhm.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion or questions that anyone has before we vote on it?
Well, I think it's a good idea. The only thing I was wondering is it at the next meeting, if we could get a sense of like, what is that land worth? And B, what maintenance, what are our maintenance costs? Would we be saving with like scheduling and whatnot? Just to kind of surface the full picture. I like the idea of the school district taking it over, so I'm not trying to oppose it at all. I just want to make sure that we know, and that the public would know too, what does that transaction actually involve? But I do like the idea of simplifying, and it seems like it would be a better fit for the school district who's already using it and doing, I'm guessing, most of the upkeep on that. Or are we upkeeping that lower field, Mike, that one?
Yeah, we do maintain the lower field.
We do, yeah. So I see some real advantages to what you're saying. So, but I'm just wondering if it's possible, Mike, just to get some of those numbers so we have a sense of it when we're looking at that next month.
Like, do you think there'll be pushback on that from the school district?
As far as the timeline, or
The deeding versus giving them the property?
yeah, that's a good point. I think they'd be more in favor if they were to have the outright property altogether instead of doing the lease. I mean, that's just surface level speaking. I can obviously reach out to the school superintendent and get his initial thoughts on it. Obviously, this has to go in front of school board for their approval too. Just because city council or park board and city council approves it doesn't mean it's going to go through. It has to be approved by the school board. So there's a lot of entities and hurdles to cross before this even becomes a reality. But yeah, that's kind of why I was leaning more towards more of a permanent deed over to them and change the property lines. Just because I think there's less of an out, there's less of a risk for the school district. And if instead we did a lease, like a $1 lease, obviously we can write the lease in such a way that it's pretty ironclad, but
I'm a little confused here, and maybe others. I thought the lease option was dead, that we are going to deed it to them, but with the restrictions on transfer. That we aren't asking staff to develop a lease. We're asking you to develop the deed language of how it would be transferred and what rights we would retain. Am I correct in that, hearing that, folks?
Yeah, that's what I agree with. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's the motion, correct?
yes.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, the chair will call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. I think that'll be a good solution
Mhm.
to do with it. I really do. Old business. Mike, you had, there it is. Discussion possible action to relocate the funds in our budget that you had brought up last meeting.
Yep. So park board directed me to put together the list of other amenities that the reallocated pickleball funds could go towards. We have $40,000 in the 2022 CIP designated for pickleball courts. At our last meeting, I talked about what the Pickleball Association has done over the past year and how they're no longer requesting funds to build pickleball courts in the city of Hudson. So it frees up some monies to utilize on other amenities that we can improve our park system. The second thing is we have a $10,000 grant coming from the League of Wisconsin Municipalities for recreational amenities. So total estimated, available funds is around $50,000. Now this spreadsheet that's on your screen right now, this was put together during our CIP discussion as part of the outdoor rec plan. And the highlighted amenities are all those, $50,000 or less, that these monies could be put towards.
Mike,
the ones-
we've
yeah.
not seen the spreadsheet.
Oh,
We're
you
still-
don't?
No, we're still seeing the school district.
How about that?
There you go.
Hey, all right, wrong screen. Okay, so the highlighted items are under 50,000. And the highlighted items did not make the CIP that we had just approved as part of the outdoor rec plan. So I don't know, Chairman Casanova, if we want to go through each one of these individually and explain them, or just kind of take a glance and get a feel for which project the park board would like to reallocate those funds toward. Like I said, we have approximately $50,000 to reallocate to a different project in the park system.
Decision now, and where I'm going with this question is Lakefront Park. We're going to have the new boat launch, and all that's going to go on with that. There's the talk of the floating boardwalk docks going in down there. Are there things on our kind of event horizon coming up that we may want to look at using some of these dollars towards, or finishing off things with other projects? So do we need to pick something? Do we need to say it's going from one directly to the other, or can it sit in a limbo, unallocated fund for a period of time?
If the park board desires that, it can sit in limbo. It doesn't have to be reallocated to a particular project. The funds are there and they're available. It's just when, let's just say you put it towards the boat launch expense, it would just have to be reallocated at some point in time by the park board to put towards that project.
Mm-hmm.
Do you anticipate that we might need that $50,000 sitting out for that, for a purpose down there?
Really saying that it's going to be needed there. I just use that as an example of a big project that's going to be coming through, hopefully coming through here, that is going to affect the park. And is there anything that we may want to do along with that? Or is there any other thing, on the horizon that we want to change allocation for? And if there's no reason.
Yeah, so Karen, to answer your question, both the boat launch and the boardwalk, we've identified alternative funding sources for both of those projects, whether it's via grants, TID district monies, so in possible, ARPA money that's coming from the federal government. So we do have, it's not that we don't need the $50,000 reallocated towards those projects to make them a goal. It would just alleviate some of the expense or some of the borrowing from the TID district. Like Pat said, if there's other amenities, whether it's like, the project doesn't include new benches or a pavilion down on that side of the park. So that, I think that's kind of what he's referring to as some of these ancillary amenities that aren't included in the big project.
And we haven't really sat down and put pencil to paper with what we want to do at the end of Orange Street, for an example, where we talk about having a nice spot for being able to put in kayaks and the like. We've talked about wanting to make improvements down there. There's something that I think if we give it some thought, we can come up with places for it to go. And I just don't see why we need to earmark it to something right now, rather than just have my own personal feeling, though, as opposed to just having it in a general fund that we can use as projects come up, or we decide what we want to put it into.
That's fair. I mean, you're more than able to do that. If you don't, the park board, it doesn't feel convicted on one project or another, it can sit in there in the capital improvement fund, lack of a better term, earmarked for other various projects as they come along, as you see a need over the next couple of years. I know that finance, like, go ahead, Pam.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, on this list, is there anything that the public is pushing for or wants, or that you've heard? Because I wouldn't know, but is there anything on here that kind of stands out as the people from Hudson are really looking for this, or
Yeah, well, I know, Paul, you can probably speak to this, the dog fountain up at
Mhm.
Grandview Park, that's been brought up at a recent park board meeting. And I know we've always talked about the Third Street steps that were taken out. That's always been kind of a point of a discussion. Those are the two that really stand out to me as far as what I hear from the public or what's been discussed at previous park board meetings as higher priority items.
And the other one I would throw onto that list would be the steps for the sailboat moorings.
Mhm.
That can's
so
been
if
kicked
we
off.
already have, yeah, if we already have public that's wanting some of these things and we have the money to do it, why wouldn't we, I guess, do that if there's enough interest?
I'm inclined to agree with you, Karen. I think it makes some sense to use at least some of it. For example, if there really is if there is some call for those Third Street steps to be put back in, maybe that's where we should put it. I mean, it certainly would allow better access to that park from,
Mhm.
from town, basically.
This is kind of what I'm getting at. Once we sit down and give some thought to what's out there, I think we can do a better job of coming to a conclusion of how we can wisely spend those dollars. And it may go to several things rather than just one.
I'm all for,
That completely makes sense. I would just say, like, but if we put it out there and forget about it, I don't know, like,
Shame on us.
Yeah.
is there a way? Yeah, is there a way to ask the public, like, or give them to get some input into some of the things I'd like to see? I mean, that would be kind of nice.
I wonder if we
Yeah,
could,
you'd almost have to well, if you put out, you almost have to give the public a list of, let's just say 5 to 10 projects and kind of narrow their focus. Because if you put it out to the public, from my experience anyway, is let's just say, we have X amount of dollars to put towards a project. What would you like to see? First thing is going to be, we want more trails, which
Yep.
$50,000 doesn't get you very far. We want a new playground, which we can buy a swing set, so it's kind of, you got to kind of pare it down a little. I get what you're saying, Karen. It is good to get that public feedback, but a lot of times the public doesn't realize some of the expenses with a lot of these amenities.
And the
Maybe
reason,
we, from the stuff that you've already said, that these are the ones that are kind of seeming hot button, maybe, say, out of these, what would you guys like to see? It would be nice to give some voice to the people of Hudson.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
I wonder if we whittled it down to 4 or 5 here and then put something on the website to, you want to kind of vote on or weigh in or give us some comment on or something like that. Or we could do a public hearing too sometime. If we just said, here's 4 or 5 projects we're looking at, here's the pot of money, and what would you guys like to see? I think that's a good idea. I know, Mike, I had some couple questions on, and I don't think we need to solve it today. I agree with Pat. We don't need to solve it, but I do think we should have some more discussion about it. Mike, I'm wondering, for the dock at Corky's Pier, is that, like, what shape is that in right now?
It's usable. The one thing about the Corky's Pier dock is with the boat launch reconstruction, we're going to be getting new docks down there.
Okay.
So we can repurpose the current docks that we have at Lakefront Park boat ramp and put them over in Corky's Pier.
Okay. So, and then the other question I have, that's helpful. The other question I have is the Williams Park picnic shelter. Is the idea that would be, would that have like a new bathroom facility, or what are we thinking with that? What kind of idea with the picnic shelter are we thinking?
So it'd just be an open air shelter. Right now, we only have one smaller picnic pavilion there.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be an additional one. It would not include a bathroom. we already have, the park board did approve updating the bathroom in Williams Park as part of the CIP
That's
for the
right.
next couple of years. So it'd just be an open air shelter.
Okay.
And that's something that that park have requested. Deb, I think you've heard that on numerous occasions.
Yes, correct. I think it was located at the other, that would be at the westerly end that they were thinking of a shelter.
And then Mike, my other question is the ice rink for White Camp. Can you just describe a little bit what that all involves? And would that be complementary to the Burton one, or are we thinking that would be in place of the Burton one at some point, or?
So I know, Pat, you can probably speak to this too, but when that shelter was originally designed and built, the design allowed for the open air portion to be enclosed.
Mhm.
And so they'd have to have, panels that would be installed and removed each season. And then it would be associated with an ice rink nearby. Now, like you said, now that we've built the one up at Burton with the intent of doing an ice rink outside of that one, maybe we don't need the need for the enclosure at White Camp right now. That one could be maybe pushed back a while and just do the one at Burton Park and the one up at Burton.
Well, and have people asked about an ice rink enclosure at White Camp? Has that been an issue?
To my knowledge, it hasn't been, I would say, an issue, but it's been something that, as Red Cedar Canyon filled in there and the development of all the other homes and the like that's out there, it was a nice addition to the park to service that part of town and the people up there. And so when that building was designed, we tried to anticipate that and design the building such that it could accommodate it if it ever went in. It'd be hard to put in an ice skating rink without having some kind of warming and bathroom facilities.
Mhm.
Just in terms of how, people are going to react to it. You get them all bundled up, take the kids up there and they got to go. But I think this leads back, Mike, to the point that with some thought and some review of some of the projects that we have, I think we can very shortly come up with some very good uses for those dollars, that to move them from pickleball to a holding fund would be worth it.
The board wants to, if you want to get the public involved, if each board member wants to email me their top 5 projects off of this list,
Mm-hmm.
and then I can basically at the next park board meeting compile it. Here are the responses, here are the top 5 projects that were identified, and then park board can vote to put those out via an email blast or a newspaper article or something like that. Park board's looking at doing, one of these 5 projects. What do you think as a public? Reply back to me with your thoughts, so on and so forth. If that's how you'd like to do it, if you want to try and get the public involved.
My 2 cents on that, I get nervous about figuring out the threshold of when we bring, 13,000 residents and get their opinions on it. Their opinion matters, obviously. And that's why they can show up at these meetings to say, hey, we really need this, the ice rink or whatever. Sometimes the problem with going out to people, we might have our top 5, and if we don't do someone's favorite one, now we've spurned them. So I guess I'm kind of hesitant about, not that $40,000 to $50,000 is not a lot of money. It is. It's a great deal of money to the park board. But at that threshold, does that going forward, anytime we decide to do an event that costs, $55,000, are we setting ourselves up to always, ask everyone and make sure that we're getting everyone's opinion on that? Just want to push that the other way, that part of the reason we have this, I'll call it a job, volunteer job, is, this is kind of our job, is to be the good, stewards of the money. So I don't know. If we were thinking about putting a $2 million fishing pier in, then yeah, we should probably get some feedback rather than just us. But I don't know. I just want to voice my opinion on that. That sometimes when you open up that box, it's hard to close it again.
Good point.
I haven't been on here long enough. I mean, is this something that we come up with a lot where we have extra funds to apply, or is this kind of a special?
Pretty much a
thing?
special.
I mean, does this happen? It doesn't happen very often, right?
No.
Like, I totally understand, Mike, and a lot of times when you open it up to people, it just gives people a reason to get mad or,
Right.
fight about things. So I do totally understand what you're saying. It's just that, I just don't know from my standpoint, like I don't have kids that are home. Like, I don't know which would be the best use of the money. So I just trying to do the right thing for the
Right,
local
right.
community. But I totally understand what you're saying because I've seen it. I've watched some, Facebook stuff that not everybody's always getting along.
Well, and on that, I guess I'll bounce this off you, Mike. If I look at this list quickly, the one thing, and maybe it's not the one thing, but one thing that pops to me is the 3rd Street steps. Since I've been on this board, I've heard that come up over and over. To me, that's one amenity that we've kind of taken away from the public and haven't really replaced or come up with a good solution. It'd be nice to add some parking or, more sidewalks, but that's the one thing that screams to me that it was there, now it's gone. I don't know if that means it carries more weight than other things, but that's just my, that pops out to me, so.
I think what carries weight is that you've heard it, and I think, Mike, you said that you've heard it too, right? Like,
Yeah.
that it sounds like that's been something that people have been one of the top ones.
Yeah.
That in the,
They've been asking why it was taken out in the first place and when it's going to go back in. And as you can tell, if you drive by there's a little goat path of people still climbing up the hill and using the roots of the trees to get up the hill. So it's there's people definitely still using it, even though the stairs aren't even there.
I'd be open to that if that's what you guys are hearing. That's a public one. I trust that.
I'm inclined to agree that we should do that too, the third Street steps. And if that's $40,000, that's still, we could put the other 10, if there really is another 10, that could be set aside.
sure. I think it goes back to with some thought and care in looking at the projects by the next meeting, we could have that list of here are the 3 that we think the dollars can go to and accomplish and spend it wisely.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mike Morose, do you have anything else?
So Pat, are you asking the board to let either you or I know like their top 2 or 3 projects that they'd like to see this money put towards, or do you just want to have this discussion again next month? How do you envision that?
I am comfortable with just having a discussion of it again.
Okay.
If we're working off the list that you have there,
Okay.
The steps, there's the water fountain for the dogs. I just trying to quickly look at it. I don't see the sailboat moorings on there, but that's been one where we're charging them every year to moor their boats there and keep telling them that we're going to make it easier for them to get down that rocky shore.
Yeah.
And
I'd look to use the mooring funds in the 280 account to do those stairs. We have. Let's see. we have $87,000 in the 280 account for boat moorings.
Mhm.
That's at the end of 2021
Okay,
that we could put towards the stairs that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so I think we can come up with some good solutions of where to put the dollars, and they'll be needed and used.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine. There's no rush on this, obviously. If you're not comfortable deciding tonight, we can put it on next month's meeting for discussion and formal approval. I'm fine with that.
How's the rest of the board feel about that?
Yeah, I think it's good to take some time to kind of think about it. And like I'm hearing already some of the, maybe priorities for what people are thinking already. So maybe just some time to think about it and reach out and maybe talk to a few residents and whatnot
Yeah.
too. So in between, that might be helpful. So.
I agree.
So no formal motion needed tonight, Pat.
I beg your pardon?
No formal motion needed tonight for anything on that.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is our project updates.
Yep, so I'll just briefly let the board know that before the meeting started tonight, we're going to be opening up the ice skating rinks here later this week. We're going to have one more day of flooding in. We had an issue with warm weather and punctured liners at the beginning of the season that put us back. And then we had the holiday snowstorms, which the staff were busy up cleaning and their vacations over the holidays. So back at it late last week and early this week in the cold weather, we were able to make a lot of ground. So like I said, the ice skating rink hopefully will be open by this upcoming weekend for the kids in the community to use. The other thing that we're discussing before the meeting is the Lakefront Park bathhouse. At Tuesday night's council meeting, they will be reviewing the plans and specifications for the repair work there and authorizing staff to go out for bid for that project, which means probably open up bids mid-February. By the time the contracts get signed, it'll probably be early March. So you'll probably see construction on that facility mid-March, late March, early April, somewhere in there. So, and the building has not completely been redesigned, but the anchoring system has been redesigned so that this does not happen in the future. So we had some architects look at it, and the way that it was designed originally was questionable, and part of the reason why it failed. So they did alter that and beefed it up a little bit so it won't happen in the future. And then included on that project is the band shell in Lakefront Park, and then some of the railing along First Street adjacent to the Lakefront Park. So like I said, the wheels in motion after Tuesday.
Great. I don't have anything. Does anyone else have anything that they want to bring up for future agenda items? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion
Aye.
carried.
Thanks,
Everyone.
everyone. Thanks,